I got notes. DOGE is going through government shrinking. At the same time that big corporations are doing these mass layoffs. These mass layoffs have been going on for a year or two, and what has been happening was during 2020, during that time, corporations were taking out wicked cheap debt, cheap or free, 0% interest rates or 1% interest rates. And what they did with that money was hire a ton of people. Everybody was getting hired, little experience, college degree. And what that does is that artificially grows the company. And so it makes it look like because we hired all these people, we're growing as a company. That was not the case. What they did was they took really cheap debt and they artificially grew their company, and doing that made it look nice to investors, hoping that it would bring in investors and they just get more money. Well, the problem with that was because they were dependent on the cheap debt. When the cheap debt went away, which is now when the Fed funds rate is wicked high, they don't have money to pay all these people. And this is conveniently timed, right? DOGE is doing the same thing. Elon, the foreigner, guy's leaving. Elon, the foreigner, has been telling people that we're shrinking the government, right? We're taking all these inefficiencies and cutting them back in order to save money. He's not shrinking government. It could be argued that he's like lowering the bill, right? But he's not creating a situation in which the government has less impact on our lives. Heartbeat, dude. It gets warm and shit just starts popping off. I swear I've been at this job for like a few months, and like it was cold and it was quiet. It got warm like 3 days in the last few weeks, and like I get out of work and sirens are going off, people, and fucking Toyota minivans are playing bachata real loud. It's fucking, cities are the worst. So you got DOGE, this head by this foreigner in an unofficial position. He's like, we're gonna, cut off inefficiencies. And so what's really going on is he's just laying a ton of people off. That saves money. It does. But it does, like, the government's not having any less of an impact on our lives. We're all going to pay the same taxes. Like, we're not going to get that stimulus package. And if we do, that just means the price of everything is going to go up. But what's interesting is that you have these raised interest rates, and you have the biggest employers in the country being the federal government and then these giant corporations. They're doing layoffs at the same time. It seems coordinated. Let's see, what have we got? Yeah, labor is just way too expensive. The standard of living has just gotten so high. We've been printing money so much, and it's gotten into circulation. Therefore, like, everybody just having access to this money. And then when everybody does, the price of labor becomes too expensive. People are spending more money. And it's never going to be the case where people have an influx of money and then they don't spend it. They always spend more money. That's just the way it goes. And so when you have people spending more money, they require more money coming in. And if you require more money coming in, right, like if you have two jobs and one pays more money but is less desirable, and then the other one pays less money but is more desirable, most people are just going to suck it up, get more money. If you get more money, you're going to spend it. That means you're going to be dependent, especially if they take out debt, they're going to be more dependent on that job paying that salary. People are always just going to spend that money, and that causes the standard of living to go up. So if everybody is requiring more money, the price of labor just goes up. Price of labor has been going up forever. And I understand, like, you know, it's funny, nobody ever thinks they're paid what they're worth. But you can't be paid what you're worth. Unless, like, you're the owner of the company. If I got paid what I was worth, my boss would make no money. Like, how could he make profit if he's paying me what I'm worth? So you can't get paid what you're worth, because how is your boss going to make money? Having notes is like pretty tough. So with DOGE doing layoffs, you're going to have less people with jobs. Remember, the U.S. government is the biggest employer in the country. They hire the most people out of every corporation in America, at least inside its borders. I have no idea if Microsoft, like Shanghai, has however many employees. I don't know. But in this country, like, the government is the biggest employer. And so what happens, coincidentally, if everybody's losing their jobs, there are enough jobs to go around. We do right now have a low unemployment rate. They're just going to have to get another job. I was watching a video the other day, last night. That video made me do this video. The video was talking about how it's so hard to find another job. People aren't hiring. Well, people are hiring. It's just not the job you want. Every restaurant hiring, construction always hiring. There's never a time where construction is not hiring. It's a shitty job. It might not be. I work construction. It's not a shitty job. I like my job. I hate this site that I'm on, but I like my job. I kind of enjoy it. It's not the easiest. Like, what I do in terms of backbreaking, like, work, very little backbreaking work, but there is finesse, and it does require me to be on my feet all day. I don't exactly get a break. Like, we get our really just federally mandated break of 30 minutes. But, I'm on my feet all day. It's not the easiest. And there's, like, a lot of finesse and technical ability that comes with my job in particular in order to do it correct. But, people just don't want to do it. People don't want to work construction. People don't want to work at restaurants. People don't want to work at Marshalls, at Walmart, fucking Amazon. But those jobs are out there. And so that video that I was watching, he was, like, talking about how none of these jobs are real, that are, like, say, on Indeed or, like, ZipRecruiter and shit. But it's just nobody wants to work those jobs. Those jobs don't pay that well. And they are less preferable to work at. They're not fun. But somebody's got to do them. And if you lose your job and you like your car and you got a mortgage payment and you got a baby mama to pay for, and you got drugs that you like to buy in the week, you want to go to the bar on the weekends, hang out with the boys, you're gonna take that shitty job. You'll take the bartender job, you'll work at Dave & Buster's fixing machines, you'll pick up a drywaller job with a bunch of Mexicans. None of those jobs anybody wants to do. They want to be like the financial officer at fucking State Farm here in Hartford. Like, you go in at fucking 9 o'clock in the morning, you don't even gotta wake up that early. You go in, you don't even start work till 10, and then there's a meeting. That meeting has nothing to do with you, so you're just chilling all day. Get out of your meeting, then you play email tennis. This guy emailed me, I gotta send this email to another guy, that guy's gonna email me back, I send it back. Like, they don't do anything. Most of these like, I guess I can say it, nobody's gonna get me, but I live in Connecticut. Hartford has, all the insurance companies are in Hartford. Whether they're like based out of here or they have a really big office here. Like, State Farm is gigantic. There's like 4 State Farm buildings in Hartford. Those buildings are full of people doing probably nothing. Like, there was a popular YouTube video a couple years ago about like all these jobs where people do literally nothing. Like, a lot of office work is pretending to be busy enough so you don't get fired. How could you have worked that job and like thought it was sustainable? You can't. Like, most people, I can't say that. I can't say most people. First of all, I don't know. I'm not there. But also, it's kind of hard to justify like hiring people if they do nothing. But it really feels like a lot of people do nothing for work. Like, I saw like a Instagram reel, which is pretty much a TikTok, but like, of 2 people describing what they do for work. The first person has an office job and it's the most complicated thing, and he really just says gibberish the whole time for like a minute. And then the second guy is like, I'm a welder. Like, that was it. The first guy is just talking nonsense. Like, I do this and I gotta find efficiencies here, and then I gotta let people know. And he talks for like a solid minute. And then the welder, he's just a fucking welder. Like, people who produce things, that's a real job. Most of the work done in these big offices, and I keep looking over there at United Healthcare. It's a giant fucking building. It's one of the taller ones in this small city. And most of the people there probably don't do anything. That's why you got massive layoffs, dude. Like, most people that got a new job in the last like 5 years, that was just a ticking time bomb. Like, you didn't do anything. And that's why they were so like sought after, especially these work at home jobs. Here's one thing I found out from that video that's actually in my notes, was like, a lot of these work from home jobs, that just means that they don't have to be at the office. Like, just because the COVID mandates, whatever, like, got lifted, that doesn't mean that suddenly your stay-at-home job was done better at the office. But you have all these corporations, you know, out of nowhere, seemingly out of nowhere, like, telling everybody that we're going to start working at the office now, gotta be here for Monday. And they give them 3 days notice. How many people, like, got a pretty good job, $100,000 a year, right? And they moved to fucking Bali. Is that even cool? I don't even know. They moved to Thailand. Got a small little hut with internet access, and they get to work on the beach. They get to do their job from the beach, and they're chilling all day. Like, that guy, like, he got an email one day and was like, hey, you gotta be at the office on Monday, good luck. Like, you gotta get a flight, you gotta move your life. What if you found a baddie over there? Like, now you gotta tell her, she gonna come, she's native to Thailand, so like, how are you gonna get her over there? I mean, that itself is really just, it's a layoff, but with more steps. So like, they're just laying people off, really, because a lot of these people just can't make it back to work in time, right? Especially if you're given, like, a week is not enough to go from across the way, then back to the office. And then let's say, you know, you're let's say you're one of those people, you live in a cheap area, like in a cheap country, and you're told to go back to work. Now you gotta spend more money to then go to a more expensive place to live so that you can make it to the office on time. You spend more money just to live closer to work. Conveniently, let's say Microsoft, the company, I mean, all of these giant corporations, when like real estate was skyrocketing, like in the process of skyrocketing, I know it's like it's high now, but when it was on the come up, all these giant corporations, they were investing heavily into real estate. A big plurality of the houses that were being bought at the time when like real estate was going up really fast, they were bought and paid for in cash. People don't have cash like that. Corporations do. And so if you can just make the safe assumption that like these corporations were getting into rental properties probably through like semi-shell companies, through like property management companies, right? They like Microsoft will tell this property management company to invest heavily in this area, like for example Hartford, where I'm at right now, and just they tell them like get a bunch of like single family houses with 3 bedrooms, and just pay it all in cash. And they do so in like the surrounding area, right? So like people working at that United Healthcare building, they want to live in Simsbury, which is a half hour away, which is a very, very nice area. So they invest heavily, like these corporations start buying houses heavily in that area. Now, 5 years later, and everybody's back to work at the office, real estate is way too expensive. Interest rates are too high. So a guy who makes good money can't afford to buy the house. So he starts renting. Well, he's renting probably from the corporation who bought the house that he's living in, that he's renting out of right now. It's like extremely convenient. Of course they did that. And I know like a lot of people don't like conspiracies, but like, of course. Like it doesn't even have to be a conspiracy. Like you can see the stats. I don't know if it's like 50% or more. But a giant plurality of like houses that were being bought during that difficult time were done so in cash. That's probably means there were companies or corporations that were buying them, or at the very least very rich people. And so they're buying them, they tell everybody to go to work back at the office, and now the corporation you work for is also collecting your rent. One of the big conspiracy theories in the in the conspiracy realm and the truther realm was like the idea of smart cities. Like, what's to say we don't live in a smart city now? I don't live in a city, because fuck that. But like, if you work for Amazon, there's a big Amazon warehouse like 15 minutes up from here in Windsor. And so if Amazon was investing heavily into the rental properties surrounding that area, that is the smart city already. That's Amazon. That's like the Amazon city. That Windsor is not a city. But that area, like if Amazon was investing heavily into the towns surrounding it in terms of real estate, like Granby and Windsor Locks, Hartford, Enfield. If Amazon was buying all those like houses in cash for like well above asking price, that's great, because now they turn those into rental properties, and now a bunch of people are working at Amazon in that Windsor area, and they can't afford the house because interest rates are too high, the house is too expensive, and so they rent. And if they're renting, they're probably renting from like Clearwater's Property Management. Clearwater's Property Management is owned by Amazon. That's hypothetical, just an example, but like that's a lot of these situations. And so we are living in this in the dystopian future that is written about in like 1984, like the Orwellian future, or like in those movies. What was that movie with Christian Bale where like it's the equilibrium? That was a cool movie. But like we live in that dystopian future now. I mean, dude, I'm working. That's irrelevant. But I am working at a church for this job, and it's like the architecture is brutalist on the outside. Brutalist, like what's brutalist architecture? It's like think of like Soviet Russia, how like a lot of the buildings are like very grandiose, but also like just concrete. Like they're big, like grandiose in the sense of like big. They're not opulent, but they're gigantic, they're square, and they're made of concrete, because concrete is like cheap. And like that's the church that I'm working at now. That's gross, dude. Like that was pretty much made by some disgusting tech overlord or something. Probably not. It was probably made in the 80s. But you know, it's disgusting. Like that is the smart city. That church that you see right behind me on my screen, that's not smart shitty shit. That's a nice looking church. Like it's very Hartford. It's very Hartford. Like Hartford has its own style of architecture. I'm just going off. Architecture is very cool, but like Hartford does have its own style of architecture because of the people that moved in back in the 1600s. A lot of Dutch, so there's a lot of like Dutch architecture, and then because of the climate here being a little different, and Italians moving here afterward, you got a lot of like Mason but also Dutch architecture that are like coming in, and then they come into form like something that's very particular to this area of Hartford, where like there's like steep gables on some of the like old houses here, but then there's also stone, and so like it's a really cool. Hartford used to be really cool. Now it's dumb. All right, let's get back to topic. Fuck. I mean, I pretty much covered everything, but I guess one of the things that I didn't cover was you know, as people get more poor, which is definitely what's happening now. Like a lot of promotions that are happening in these giant corporations, they're promotions, but then it turns out like you got to pay for your own travel or something. So you might get a $5,000 a year like pay bump, but you got to pay $8,000 to travel because you got to pay for your own travel, you got to pay for your own food. And so that's conveniently just making everybody more poor. When you make everybody more poor, you lower the standard of living. That's a big deal. Because of raising the standard of living, which has been happening for the last 100 years, causes everything to get more expensive. Well, what if you were to force a lower standard of living? Yeah, everybody would be mad, and you know, you got risks of riots and stuff, but let's say you're this overlord that controls everything. Let's say you wear a tiny hat and you have a hook nose, and you know, you have a really big loyalty to this small Middle Eastern country. Let's say you're doing that, you're controlling the weather, you're controlling everybody, and you have this problem where labor is just too expensive, people are not working as much, and you just can't get the economy just the way you want it, right? If you forcibly and artificially made everybody get a lower standard of living, what's a better way to do it than to like make everything, than to like lower everybody's wages, and then you just blame it on somebody else, right? So like most people don't know that raising your standard of living causes the prices to go up. Prices go up, you require more coming in, you spend more, then you constantly need, like next year you always just need more money because you bought more shit this year. conveniently, you can just like blame it on the economy, lay everybody off, and then everybody, like, they can either be dependent on the government, which is a huge plus for the powers that be, because they'll do anything to like get their food going, right? Their living. Or you can, like, say you just got laid off, you can just go to a worse job. You can go to a job that pays less, that has less benefits. And that's just what's happening, right? So DOGE is just doing the same thing as all these big companies. They're laying everybody. They're laying a lot of people off. They're lowering the standard of living. That's going to get the price of labor to go down, because if you do it in such a way, really the finesse comes in where you have to lower the standard of living, but you need people not to revolt. And that's always, like, I understand that a lot of people might think that revolt is just really far away, but that's something that the powers that be have always, like, been careful of. So lower the standard of living. You gotta finesse it so that they blame somebody. That's what's great about politics, is like you got a constant switching of left and right, and at least at the executive level of the federal government. Like, you can just always blame the last guy. Like, if you're a right-wing guy, you're just gonna blame the last Democrat, and if you're a left-wing guy, you're just gonna blame the last Republican. It's, for whatever reason, it's never the guy that you want, right? So you got to create that finesse of, like, make sure they don't revolt, but lower their standard of living. Lowering their standard of living causes the prices of everything to go down. So hey, if you want the price of things to go down, stop spending your money, or, you know, just make everybody stop spending less money. Give everybody less money. This was a rough video. I couldn't get my footing. Haven't slept in days. Fuck it, we're calling it. I'm gonna try this video again. I'm still gonna post this because I need to post, but we'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. You'll be alright. You'll figure it out.